Every frontier legend seems to end the same way. The dust settles, the villain is gone, and the hero stands tall beneath a wide western sky. But what happens when the cheers fade and the crowd disappears? What happens the next morning, when the blood is washed from the porch boards, when the fields are still broken, when fear lingers heavier than gunsmoke? This story does not begin with the brawl itself. It begins the morning after, when the farmer's daughter wakes to silence so loud it feels dangerous. And Henry realizes that surviving the fight was only the beginning of a far harder battle. This is the part frontier stories rarely tell. The part where survival is no longer about fists or firearms, but about endurance, decisions, and the courage to face what remains. The farmer's daughter had grown up believing hardship was a constant companion. Drought, hunger, and isolation were familiar enemies. But nothing prepared her for the fragile emptiness left behind after violence. The land looked the same, yet felt altered, as though the soil itself remembered what had happened. Henry, bruised and worn, carried more than physical pain. He carried the weight of responsibility, knowing that his actions, however justified, had reshaped their future. Together, they stood at a crossroads no map could mark, forced to ask questions few frontier heroes ever considered. How do you protect a family when danger has already proven it can reach you? How do you rebuild trust in a world that nearly took everything? This was not just the aftermath of a brawl. It was the dismantling of illusion. The illusion that courage alone could guarantee safety, that strength meant victory without consequence. As the farmer's daughter surveyed the damaged barn, the trampled fields, and her father's quiet exhaustion, she understood something fundamental. Survival on the frontier was not heroic. It was deliberate. It required planning, sacrifice, and an acceptance that scars would remain long after wounds healed. And in that realization, the true story began. Before we go further, this is Western Tales Official, where we go beyond legends and into the lived realities of the Old West. If you believe the most powerful stories are the ones history whispers instead of shouts, make sure you subscribe and join us as we uncover the untold chapters that shaped frontier lives. Now, ask yourself this as we continue. If you had survived the fight of your life, would you know how to survive what came next? The damage left behind was not dramatic in the way stories prefer. There were no triumphant speeches, no celebratory gatherings. Instead, there was broken fencing, shattered tools, and a family operating on exhaustion rather than hope. The farmer's daughter noticed how her father moved more slowly, how every step carried hesitation. The brawl had exposed their vulnerability, and once exposed, it could not be unseen. Henry felt it too. Each creak of wood at night sounded like a warning. Each unfamiliar footprint near the fields felt like a threat waiting to return. Physical injuries healed faster than emotional ones. Fear became an unspoken presence at the table. Conversations shortened. Laughter disappeared. The family had lost more than property. They had lost certainty. On the frontier, certainty was currency. Without it, every decision carried risk. Should they stay or move? Repair or abandon? Trust neighbors or withdraw inward? The farmer's daughter struggled with guilt, wondering if her connection to Henry had drawn danger to her family's door. Henry, in turn, wrestled with a darker question. Had defending them made things worse in the long run? Practical problems demanded immediate attention. Crops damaged during the confrontation meant reduced food and income. Livestock scattered or injured. Supplies already scarce now had to stretch further. Each solution created a new problem, and every delay carried consequences. Yet beneath the stress, something quieter was forming. The shared burden forced honesty. There was no room for pride when survival was on the line. Decisions were discussed openly. Responsibility shifted. The farmer's daughter stepped into roles she had never held before, not out of ambition, but necessity. The frontier was unforgiving, but it was also revealing. It stripped people down to what they truly valued. And in the wake of violence, the family learned that resilience was not loud or dramatic. It was methodical. It was waking up despite fear. It was choosing repair over retreat. It was acknowledging loss without allowing it to define the future. The brawl had ended, but its echoes shaped every choice they made. When resources disappear, creativity becomes survival. Henry and the farmer's daughter learned this quickly. With limited materials, they repurposed what remained. Broken planks became patched walls. Damaged tools were reshaped into new implements. Farming methods changed, prioritizing crops that required less water and offered faster yields. Each adaptation was born from desperation, yet guided by careful thought. This was not reckless survival. It was strategic endurance. The farmer's daughter proved particularly resourceful. She kept detailed mental records of supplies, rationing without making it feel like deprivation. She learned to trade labor instead of goods, offering help to nearby families in exchange for seeds, livestock care, or repairs. Henry focused on reinforcing their defenses, not through aggression, but through visibility and preparedness. Clear sight lines, better lighting, and early warning measures replaced the illusion that strength alone could deter danger. What emerged was not merely a repaired homestead, but a transformed one. The brawl had forced them to reconsider how they lived, worked, and planned. They no longer assumed stability. They engineered it. Each improvement, however small, restored confidence. Each successful harvest rebuilt trust in the future. The frontier rewarded those who learned quickly, and they had learned at a cost few would envy. This phase of their story reveals something essential. Survival is not passive. It is active, thoughtful, and often unglamorous. It is the quiet refusal to surrender to despair. The farmer's daughter and Henry did not rebuild because they believed things would improve on their own. They rebuilt because they understood that hope requires effort. Isolation was a myth the frontier could not afford. Despite popular imagery, no family survived alone for long. In the aftermath, neighbors began to appear, sometimes cautiously, sometimes openly. Some offered tools, others offered labor. A few offered nothing more than conversation, yet even that mattered. Shared stories reduced fear. Shared work reduced burden. Slowly, a network formed, not out of charity, but mutual recognition. Everyone understood that violence anywhere threatened stability everywhere. The farmer's daughter witnessed how cooperation transformed recovery. A repaired fence became a shared boundary. A harvested field became a communal success. Henry learned that strength multiplied when distributed. Trust, once fragile, grew through consistent action rather than promises. The community did not erase the trauma, but it prevented isolation from compounding it. This collective resilience became their greatest defense, not against attackers, but against hopelessness. The frontier tested individuals, but it sustained communities. And in that shared effort, the couple discovered that survival was not about standing alone against the world, but about standing together within it. Years later, the brawl was remembered not as a victory, but as a turning point. It reshaped priorities, relationships, and identity. The farmer's daughter and Henry carried the experience with them, not as a burden, but as a foundation. Their bond, tested under pressure, emerged stronger because it was forged through shared responsibility rather than romantic illusion. They understood something the stories never tell. True strength is not proven in moments of violence, but in the long work of rebuilding afterward. Their future was not defined by what they fought against, but by what they chose to build together. And that choice, repeated daily, became their legacy. So as this story ends, consider this question. When history celebrates the fight, who remembers the rebuilders? At Western Tales Official, we do. If you value the stories beyond the gunfire, subscribe and stay with us. Because the real frontier was not conquered by brawls, but by resilience.